I'm starting to find some data to prove that consumers are not happy with the state of things, which is a damning indication that the tech industry has lost its way, and it feeds into everything I complain about, and the fact that companies are now relying on advertisements and subscriptions and all of that stuff to to make up for the money that they don't know how to make properly. Broken trust. What Harness's 2024 report reveals about software failures and consumer frustration. Now, I couldn't find how many people they surveyed in this 2024 sentiment report, but it's US consumers, and some of the stats in here across the US and the UK here. 52% of US consumers have been directly impacted by software outages, with incidents like CrowdStrike, meltdown, banking disruptions, and telecom outages leaving millions stranded. More than a mere inconvenience, these failures have shaken trust in essential services like online banking, healthcare, and transportation. Key findings. Software outages are no longer rare. They're a global issue affecting millions. In the US, 52% of consumers report being directly impacted by IT failures, compared to 44% in the UK, although I wonder what it's going to be like this year. We're halfway through the year, and we're already seeing UK getting hit hard. We have CrowdStrike disruptions with airlines, banks, hospitals, etc., etc. We've covered a lot of these. The consequences are not minor. 45% couldn't access websites or apps, 36% faced interruptions in online banking, 29% were unable to pay for goods or services. And then the trust that is lost from companies who suffer from these things because they're supposed to be on top of it, but instead what they do is they delegate it to third parties so they can abscond themselves of their responsibility to do these things. Well, half of the US consumers report being less trusting of companies that have faced IT outages. And an alarming 70% equate software failures to public health crises, saying they're as bad or worse than supermarkets selling contaminated food. In other words, consumers consider IT outages at least as bad or worse than supermarkets selling contaminated food. That's how important it is to consumers to not have this crap shoved on them. They're not happy with the state of things. In the US, 73% support enforceable standards to address poor quality software, a sentiment echoed by 74% in the UK. And 31% support government-imposed fines. Now, to add a little bit of like scientific data to this scientific study, it came out, let's see, when did it come out? I think this one's 2020. I'm pretty sure it's 2020. But what they did, so back in 2020, on the relationship between user churn and software issues. In 2020, what they did was they went to alternative2.net. It's this website right here. And they looked at the data that was being gathered by this website. This website is essentially a place you go to pick any software you want or any website and go, there's an alternative to using Google, there's an alternative to using Microsoft Office, etc. And you state the alternative, and then you write a review about the alternative, what you don't like about the current one, etc. So they gathered, I think, a few hundred of these products, and the comments, the sentiment of people who are saying that they are satisfied or not satisfied. And generally speaking, what it boils down to, it was pretty good. It was a pretty good study. I read it all the way through. What it boils down to is that a lot of, even though you have a disparate, or how would you say it? You have a divide between the different types of products that you're going to use. So at the time, there were still people who were doing stuff with Flash. There's the Chrome versus Firefox thing. There's IDEs like Eclipse versus Visual Studio Code, things like this. But they are in different kind of domains. So you'll have like cross-platform domain. You'll have like only in the web. You'll have browser-based stuff, etc. And there's a chart right here. Regardless of which kind of division you're in within these software-based domains, let's call it, for lack of a better term right now in my brain, bugs and crashes were easily the most consistent reason why people looked for alternatives to the things that they had. Chrome being one of the most egregious at the time, where since 2020, people were literally posting on alternative to .NET here that having too many tabs open crashed their Chrome browser, and they were pointing to Firefox as the alternative. But then they were talking about Eclipse and, you know, all of that stuff. So this is, I'm surprised I didn't find this before because it's from 2020. I'm glad I came across this because this kind of data is actually really difficult to find. It's difficult to point to data that actually outlines consumer satisfaction reports of the things that exist out there. And even this one's outdated, right? We're talking about 5 years now. But I would pose to you a question. Do you think that these satisfaction reports are better, worse, or neutral?